Good morning. I'm at a lookout in Anza-Borrego Desert, looking down at the Sonoran Desert, and I'd like to greet everybody on the World Wide Well. It's a beautiful morning here. I'm watching a lone bicycler coming up the hill, and you might be able to see him here pretty soon. We're going to be looking at Matthew 11. Matthew 11, and here comes the biker right now, going up the switchbacks, 4,000-foot climb. We're looking at Matthew 11. As I was driving up here to the overlook, I noticed that on the radio that Moscow is being hit in a big way with this virus. 2% of the people in Moscow have the virus, the coronavirus, and it's a city somewhere in between the size of Los Angeles and Chicago, so you can imagine what's going on there. The mayor was on the radio and talking about the challenges that they are facing there, and it's certainly formidable. So here we are watching the sunrise over the desert, over the Sonoran Desert, talking about Matthew chapter 11. I'd like you to turn to the very end of the book, or the chapter rather, as we kind of pan back and look at the sunrise. It's absolutely beautiful this morning, stunning. The very last passage in Matthew chapter 11 says this: "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my burden upon you, for my yoke is easy, my burden is light." And I think that's what we need right now is rest. The Facebook group for the World Wide Well is all about rest. It's not about debates. It's not about arguing. There's lots of places for that on the internet, and there's a place for debate. There's a place for that. But this is not that. I just feel really called to give people an oasis of rest. I need rest for my soul. I've been overworked the last few days, having trouble sleeping, been very irritable in general. I think we're all getting to the point now where with this sort of lockdown, it's getting kind of long in the tooth, and we're frustrated. A lot of people frustrated in Huntington Beach, my hometown. Some of them legitimately so, some just looking for an excuse to get angry. It's hard to separate the good from the bad, but that's true for all of us. And before we criticize anyone, I think it's so important that we understand that the line between good and evil runs down the middle of all of us, runs down the middle of me, runs down the middle of you, runs down the middle of our enemies. We try to move that line over time as we let the Holy Spirit sanctify us and clean us up. And we do get victory in our lives from time to time over really bad stuff. But I don't think we ever get rid of that line between good and evil in this life. I just don't think that ever happens. You can hear the birds singing there, and as the desert comes alive. So it helps us to be a little bit more gentle on people, even people we disagree with stridently. And I think it's so important that if you disagree with people, especially family members, don't let this pandemic hurt or destroy any relationships that you're in. Your relationships are too important for that. Your relationships have to be stronger than your disagreements. And even if we do disagree with people, Christians need to do it with what's called the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5. Right around verse 22 or so, it talks about gentleness, self-control. And 1 Corinthians 13, that great passage on love, tells us all about how we're supposed to converse as Christians, how we're supposed to talk as Christians. And it says, if we don't speak truth with love, we're like a clanging gong. And it's beautiful to be up in the morning here before everyone wakes up. There's no clanging gongs out there, nothing but peace and birds. And spring is coming alive here in the desert, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful panorama. So if you have to speak hard truth to people, or if you have to disagree with someone, don't be a clanging gong. Nobody ever got argued into the kingdom. I've never once in 30 years of ministry had somebody show up in my office and say, I just lost an argument with a Christian, so I suppose I better get baptized. Now, people get loved into the kingdom. People get prayed into the kingdom. People get taught into the kingdom. So if you disagree with someone and you really believe you're right, teach them. Don't argue with them. Don't put them down. Don't run them down. All that does is create resistance and resentment on their part. So what can you and I do to be a little bit more loving today? Even if we disagree with people, even if we're getting irritable, even if we're getting tired, even if we're just longing to break free, just remember from Matthew 11, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That's Jesus talking to us, and his promises always come true.